There's a strange moment between dreaming and waking up. A brief flicker of time where nothing feels real, where everything is soft, weightless, untouched by reality. That moment used to be my favorite part of the day. But now it's my least favorite because every morning, for a split second, I forget. I forget what happened. I forget why I wake up in a different bed, in a different city with a different name. And then it all comes crashing back. Her voice, her laughter, the way she looked at me right before I walked out of her life forever. The way I knew, deep down, that she never expected me to leave. I didn't just walk away from my wife. I vanished completely. No goodbye, no explanation. One day I was there, the next I was gone. And for years, she had no idea where I went, until she found me. But before I tell you how that happened, let me take you back to the moment my entire world collapsed. Because before I disappeared, before she stood there speechless in front of me all those years later, there was a night that changed everything. Started like any other night. I came home late, exhausted, carrying a bag of groceries. I remember thinking how quiet the house felt. Too quiet. She was in the bedroom when I walked in, sitting on the edge of the bed, her back straight, hands folded neatly in her lap. There was something about the way she was sitting that made my stomach tighten, like she had rehearsed this moment. "Hey," I said, setting the groceries down. "Everything okay?" She looked up at me, and right then I knew. I can't explain it. I just knew. Her eyes held something I had never seen before. A kind of careful detachment, like she had already made peace with whatever she was about to say. And then she said the words that cracked my world in half. I wish I could say I reacted with calm, that I took a deep breath and asked all the right questions, but I didn't. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to process it. I actually thought she was joking, and then she kept talking, and I stopped laughing. That was the moment my old life ended. The moment I realized that everything I thought I knew was a lie. The moment that led to me vanishing without a trace. And the moment that would one day leave her standing in front of me years later, speechless. I stood there, my pulse thundering in my ears, trying to grasp what my wife had just said. My mind refused to process it, as if my brain itself had put up a wall, a last-ditch effort to protect me from what was coming. But no amount of denial could change the truth. She wasn't the woman I thought she was. I had always considered myself a logical man, a man who analyzed situations, looked at problems from every angle before making a move. But in that moment, logic abandoned me. I was nothing but raw, unfiltered emotion, drowning in betrayal. She sat there waiting. I could see it in her face. She thought I'd yell, scream, demand an explanation. Maybe she even thought I'd fight for her, beg her to reconsider. But I did none of that. Instead, I turned and walked out of the bedroom. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice sharp with confusion. I didn't answer. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and headed for the door. I wasn't thinking about where I was going. I wasn't even thinking about what had just happened. My feet carried me out of the house, into the cold night air, away from the home I had built with her, away from the life I thought we had. I drove for hours, past the city, past the suburbs, out onto the empty highways where no one knew me, where I could just be another set of headlights in the dark. At some point, I pulled over at a rest stop, staring blankly at the dashboard. My hands were still gripping the wheel, white-knuckled, as if I were afraid that letting go would mean accepting reality. That was when it hit me. She wasn't expecting me to leave. She never thought I would. That was why she had been so calm, so rehearsed. She had already decided how this would go. She'd break the news. We'd have a fight. Maybe I'd crash at a friend's place for a night. Then I'd come crawling back, desperate to fix things. But she underestimated me. I reached into my glove compartment, pulled out my wallet, and stared at my ID. My name, my address, everything that tied me to that life, to that house, to her. And in that moment, I made my decision. I wasn't going back. Ever. It's strange the way life can change in a single night. One moment you think you have everything figured out, and the next you're standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down into the unknown. By the time the sun rose, I had a plan. A drastic, insane, irreversible plan. But it was the only thing that made sense. I got rid of my phone, closed my bank accounts, walked into a small-town diner 3 states away, and paid cash for a cheap meal, using a fake name for the first time in my life. And just like that, I became a ghost. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't let her or anyone know where I had gone. For all she knew, I had vanished into thin air. And for years, she never found me until the night she did. The first few weeks after I disappeared were a blur. Not in the way people describe drunken nights or adrenaline rushes, but in the way that trauma fogs your brain, turning reality into something distant, something you can barely feel. I had expected freedom to taste sweeter, to feel like some kind of victory. But instead, it was hollow. I was a man without an anchor, drifting between towns, gas stations, and cheap motel rooms, existing but not really living. I thought about her constantly in those early days. Not in the way a heartbroken man longs for his wife, but in the way a man tries to make sense of the wreckage left behind. I wanted to understand why she did it, why she thought she could get away with it, why she assumed I would stay. But those questions had no answers. At least none that would ever satisfy me. So I let her go. Or at least I tried. I built a new life in a quiet town far from the one I used to call home. No one there knew me. No one looked at me with pity or curiosity. I found a job, something simple, something that didn't require me to explain my past. I rented a small apartment, paid in cash. I stopped looking over my shoulder, stopped wondering if she was looking for me. I told myself that I was fine, that I had escaped, that I had won. And for a while, I believed it. But the thing about running away is that you never really outrun yourself. The ghosts of your past have a way of creeping back in, whispering in the quiet moments, slipping into your thoughts when you least expect them. It wasn't regret. I didn't miss her. I didn't want my old life back. But there were nights when I'd wake up, my heart pounding, unsure of where I was, expecting to hear her breathing next to me. There were moments when I caught myself instinctively reaching for my phone to text her something stupid, some inside joke from years ago, before I remembered that the person I had loved no longer existed. But I kept going. I carved out something resembling peace. I even found myself smiling again, at the old man who ran the corner store, at the barista who knew my order before I said it, at the strangers who had no idea who I was. And then one night, everything changed. I was sitting in a diner, sipping my coffee, flipping through a newspaper like an old man stuck in the past. The place was quiet, just a few scattered customers lost in their own worlds. The bell over the door jingled, and out of habit, I glanced up, and there she was. She didn't see me at first. She was scanning the room, searching for something. No, for someone. Her face was different, older, tired. But it was her. The woman who had broken me. The woman who had sat on the edge of our bed and ripped my life apart with a few carefully rehearsed words. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched. And then, as if sensing my gaze, she turned. Our eyes met, and she froze. For the first time in my life, I saw her speechless, truly, completely stunned. She had found me, but she wasn't ready for what came next. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The noise of the diner faded into the background, muffled like sound underwater. The clatter of plates, the hum of conversation, the sizzling of bacon on the griddle. It all became distant, insignificant. The only thing that existed was the space between us, charged and heavy with everything left unsaid. She looked different. The years had left their mark, not in wrinkles or gray hairs, but in something deeper. There was weight in her eyes, a quiet kind of exhaustion that told me she had been searching for a long time. Maybe she thought she'd never actually find me. Maybe she had given up and only stumbled upon me by accident. But here we were. My grip tightened around the coffee cup, and for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time. Not anger, not sadness, just curiosity. Why was she here? She took a slow step forward, then another. She hesitated at my table, her fingers trembling slightly as she clutched the strap of her purse. I waited. I could see the war inside her, the way she fought for the right words, The way she searched my face like she was trying to recognize the man she had once known. "James," she finally breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "James." It was strange to hear my name from her lips after all this time. I had been living under a different name for so long that I had almost forgotten what it felt like to be James. I said nothing. I just leaned back in my chair, studying her, letting the silence stretch between us. She swallowed hard. I thought you were dead." I almost laughed. Dead. It wasn't the first time I had thought about what she must have believed happened to me. Maybe she thought I had gotten into an accident. Maybe she thought I had lost my mind. But never once did I imagine she had truly believed I was gone. I tilted my head slightly. "And now that you know I'm not?" Her breath hitched. I watched her fidget, twisting the strap of her purse, looking anywhere but at me. I could see the regret in her eyes, the way she wanted to explain, to justify, to rewrite history in a way that might make her feel less guilty. I looked for you," she admitted. "For years. I hired people. I tried everything." Something about that made my stomach tighten. I had always assumed she would have moved on quickly, that my disappearance would have been a temporary inconvenience before she went back to whatever life she had built after me. But if she had truly searched for me, why? I studied her face, searching for the answer she wouldn't say aloud. And then, in a moment of clarity, it hit me. She hadn't been searching for me because she missed me. She had been searching for me because she needed something. A bitter smile tugged at the corner of my lips. "Why don't you just skip ahead to the part where you tell me what you want?" Her eyes snapped to mine, and I saw the flash of guilt, of shame, of something deeper. She had been caught. She took a deep breath, and for the first time, I saw the truth settle on her shoulders. She wasn't here for closure. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here because she needed me, and whatever it was, I had a feeling it was going to be bad. I let my words hang in the air, watching as her expression shifted. Shock, hesitation, and then something closer to defeat. She hadn't expected me to cut straight through the pretense. She had rehearsed this conversation in her head, probably planned a delicate approach, imagined a tearful reunion, maybe even some redemption. But I wasn't the man she had left behind. She sat down slowly across from me, folding her hands in her lap like a child waiting for permission to speak. I waited, letting her squirm under the weight of my silence. "I don't know where to start," she finally murmured. I raised an eyebrow. "Try the truth." She flinched. I had spent years wondering if she ever regretted what she did, if she lay awake at night, haunted by her choices, by the way she had thrown away everything we built. But looking at her now, I realized regret wasn't what brought her here. She needed something. "I never stopped looking for you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "After you left, after you just vanished, I was lost. I didn't know how to move on. I didn't know how to explain what happened to people." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "And whose fault was that?" Her mouth opened, then closed. "No excuses, no lies. Good." She took a shaky breath. "I deserve that. I know I do. But James," she swallowed hard, "I came because I need you." There it was, the confession, the moment she had been dreading. I leaned back, arms crossed, waiting for her to continue. She stared at her hands, her fingers twisting together. "Everything fell apart after you left. I didn't react. The person I was involved with, it didn't work out." She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "Surprise, right?" I said nothing. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. She sighed. "I lost everything. The house, my savings, my reputation." My eyebrow twitched. Reputation. Now that was interesting. She hesitated before continuing, as if unsure how much to reveal. "I didn't realize how much I depended on you until you were gone." A bitter chuckle slipped from my lips. "You mean you didn't realize how much you depended on my money, my stability, my ability to clean up your messes?" Her face crumpled slightly, and for a split second, I almost felt something. Pity, maybe, but I pushed it away. She shook her head. "I made mistakes, huge ones, and I know I don't deserve anything from you. but I don't have anywhere else to go. I studied her, letting her words sink in. Somewhere along the way, she had become desperate. Desperate enough to track me down after all these years. You want something from me? I said slowly. So let's hear it. What is it? She clenched her hands into fists, her breathing uneven. Then, she looked up at me, her eyes full of something I couldn't quite place. I need help, she admitted. I need you to come back. A heavy silence followed, and for the first time since she walked in, I laughed. A real laugh, deep and sharp, cutting through the tension like a blade. She had spent years searching for me, not out of love, not out of remorse, but because she thought I was still the same man she left behind. The same man who would put her first. But she was wrong. So wrong. I leaned back in my chair, letting her words hang between us like a bad smell. She wanted me to come back. Back to what exactly? To the wreckage she had created? To the life she had torn apart with her own selfish hands? It was almost funny, if it wasn't so pathetic. I watched her fidget, waiting for me to say something, but I didn't. I wanted to see how far she'd go. She licked her lips nervously, as if she was afraid I'd get up and walk away right then and there. James, I know how this sounds. I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, but I don't have anyone else. I've hit rock bottom. She looked down, her fingers tightening into fists on the table. After you disappeared, things got bad. I let out a quiet breath. Oh, and whose fault is that? Her head jerked up, eyes wide, and for the first time, I saw something crack in her. She wasn't expecting me to be this cold. She still thought there was some version of me, the old me that would care, that would want to fix her problems. But that man was long gone. She swallowed hard. I know. I ruined everything. I see that now. Do you? I asked, tilting my head. Or do you just miss the life I gave you? Her breath hitched, and she looked away, ashamed. That was all the confirmation I needed. I should have walked out right then. I should have thrown a couple of bills on the table for my coffee and left her sitting there, drowning in her own regret. But something in me, some dark, bitter curiosity, wanted to hear the rest. Tell me, I said, what happened after I left? She hesitated, as if trying to figure out how much truth she could get away with. But she must have realized she had nothing left to lose, because she finally started talking. I waited, she admitted. At first, I thought you'd come back, that you just needed time to cool off. But then the days passed, and then weeks, and then months, and nothing. She exhaled shakily. I tried everything. I called your friends, your family. I even went to the police at one point. I raised an eyebrow. You told them what, exactly? She bit her lip. That my husband had disappeared without a trace. That I was afraid something had happened to you. I laughed, shaking my head. Let me guess. They weren't exactly sympathetic. Her cheeks flushed with shame. No. Everyone knew what I did. Good. I let her continue, curious how far her fall had been. The guy I was with, it wasn't real, she admitted. I think, deep down, I always knew that he wasn't you. I felt nothing at those words. No satisfaction, no vindication, just emptiness. He left me not long after you did, she confessed. Said I had too much baggage, that I wasn't fun anymore. I scoffed. Let me guess. You thought you were trading up, but instead you got traded in. She winced but didn't deny it. I lost everything, she murmured. The house, the security, my reputation. People whispered about me. Friends stopped calling. It was like I had become a ghost, just like you. She exhaled sharply. I guess I deserve that. I didn't bother agreeing with her. It was too obvious. I spent years trying to move on, she continued, voice raw. But I couldn't, because no matter where I went, no matter what I did, it always came back to you. She swallowed hard. You didn't just leave, James. You erased yourself. You became someone else. And I needed to know why. That made me pause. She wasn't wrong. I hadn't just walked away. I had wiped myself off the map. I had become someone new, built a life where no one knew my name, where I didn't have to be the man she had betrayed. and she had spent years chasing the ghost of who I used to be. "Now you found me," I said flatly. "So what do you want? You already admitted this isn't about love. This isn't about regret. You need something." She took a deep, shaky breath, and when she spoke, I saw it. The truth. The real reason she was here. "I need help," she said softly. "James, I'm drowning." I stared at her, unblinking. She had spent years trying to move on. And now, when she had nowhere else to turn, she thought she could come crawling back to me. The old me might have been weak enough to consider it, but the old me was dead. I just hadn't buried him yet. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, letting her words settle into the thick silence between us. "I'm drowning." She said it like it meant something, like it was supposed to move me, to shake loose whatever remnants of affection I might still have buried somewhere deep inside. But all it did was confirm what I already suspected. This wasn't about me. It was about her. It had always been about her. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman sitting across from me wasn't the same person I had married all those years ago. Back then, she had been confident, full of life, glowing with the kind of self-assurance that made people gravitate toward her. But now she was worn down, fractured. She had the look of someone who had spent too long chasing things she would never catch. I should have felt something. Pity, triumph, closure. Instead, I felt nothing. "You're drowning?" I repeated, my voice calm, measured. "And you expect me to save you?" She flinched at the coldness in my tone, but she didn't look away. That told me everything. She had prepared herself for this reaction. She had played out this conversation in her mind, rehearsed what she would say, anticipated how I might respond. But the version of me she had built in her head, the man she thought she could still reach, didn't exist anymore. "I don't expect anything," she said finally, her fingers tightening around the coffee cup in front of her. I had to try." "Try what?" I asked. "To see if I'd throw you a lifeline after you torched the only bridge between us?" She swallowed hard, and for a moment I thought she might cry, but she didn't. Instead, she let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "I deserve that," she admitted. "I do." She looked down, shaking her head. "You know, for years I told myself you had to still hate me. That's why you disappeared. That's why you didn't want to be found. But sitting here now, I realize it's worse than that. Isn't it?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The look on her face told me she already knew. I didn't hate her. I nothinged her. And that, more than anything, was what she couldn't handle. She let out a slow breath, pushing her hands through her hair. "I didn't come here to beg," she said quietly. "I swear I didn't. But after everything fell apart, I kept thinking if I could just talk to you one more time. Maybe I could." She stopped herself, shaking her head as if disgusted by the thought. "Maybe you could what?" I asked, my voice steady, unreadable. She looked up at me, her eyes shining with something I couldn't quite name. Regret? Longing? Desperation? Maybe all of it. "Maybe I could fix things," she admitted. "Maybe I could undo what I did. Maybe I could make you see that I—" She hesitated, like she couldn't bring herself to say it. I watched her struggle, waiting, because I wanted to hear the words. I wanted to hear what she thought was still possible between us after all these years. "I still care about you," she finally said. And there it was, the lie. I let out a slow exhale, rubbing a hand over my jaw. "You don't care about me," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "You care about what I represented. You care about the version of me that you lost. The one who would have forgiven you. The one who would have picked up the pieces and put you back together." She opened her mouth to argue, but I wasn't finished. "But that version of me died the day I walked out that door," I continued, my tone steady. "You don't get to mourn someone you killed, and you don't get to ask a ghost to come back and save you." Her breath hitched and I saw it. Finally, I saw it. The realization, the understanding that there was no going back, that whatever she had been hoping for, whatever fantasy she had built in her mind about this moment, wasn't real. She blinked rapidly, looking away, her hands gripping the edge of the table like she was trying to hold herself together. I sighed, pushing my chair back slightly. "I don't know what you expected to find when you came here," I said, my voice quieter now. "But I'm not him, and you're not the woman I once loved." She flinched at that, maybe because it was the first time I had acknowledged that I ever did love her. Maybe because it was the last time I ever would. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of the past sat between us like something heavy, something impossible to lift. And then finally, she whispered, "So this is it." I met her gaze. "This was over years ago. You're just the last one to realize it." She sucked in a shaky breath, nodding slowly. And in that moment I knew she understood. This wasn't just the end of us. It was the end of the illusion she had been clinging to all this time. I stood up, reaching into my wallet and tossing a few bills onto the table, out of habit more than anything else. And then, without another word, I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't have to, because for the first time in years, I wasn't the one haunted by the past. She was. The night air was cool against my skin as I stepped out of the diner, leaving her behind. I could still feel the weight of our conversation pressing against my chest, but it wasn't heavy, not like before. It wasn't the kind of weight that dragged me down, but the kind that finally settled, like a storm that had run out of thunder. For the first time in years, I felt light. I walked down the quiet street, the sound of my footsteps echoing against the pavement. I thought about all the years I had spent running, hiding, convincing myself that as long as I stayed out of sight, I could outrun the past. But I hadn't needed to, because the past wasn't something that could chase me. It was only as powerful as I let it be. And tonight, I had finally let it go. I didn't feel anger anymore. Not toward her, not toward what had happened. I didn't feel regret or longing or any of the emotions that used to twist in my gut whenever I thought about her. All that was left was peace. I reached my car, pausing for a moment before getting in. I took a deep breath, letting the air fill my lungs, grounding myself in the present. I had spent so long being a ghost, a man with no roots, no direction. But that part of my life was over now. I was free, free from her, free from the version of myself that had loved her, free to finally start living instead of just existing. As I pulled onto the road, I glanced in the rearview mirror one last time. The diner was still there, glowing softly in the distance, but it no longer held any power over me. The woman sitting inside wasn't my problem anymore. My story didn't end with her. It was just beginning. And this time I wasn't running from anything. I was running towards something.